High on praise and exaltation. We are Hope 103.1 FM. Hope 103.1 FM. Why listen to anything else?
You didn't come for the strong, you're here for the broken. This is my song of intercession, God. Only you know. Only you know how it feels inside. This pain when you try to hide it. Afraid to cry for help, you smile and drown it out. Only you know how it feels inside. To try and try and try and try and try and fail. Only you know why you say the clock and he's not at home. Out with his boys drinking, 'cause he knows when he goes home and opens that door, it's another night of fighting or silence. Oh, she's cutting up deep, and they just think that she's crazy, but you know better, doctor. You know she's being touched in the wrong way. Oh, doctor, can you heal him? I pray, 'cause if you don't, he will not make it. Doctor, can you heal her? I pray, 'cause if you don't, she won't make it till the morning. Doctor, can you heal them? I pray, 'cause if you don't, they will not make it. Doctor, can you heal them? I pray, 'cause if you don't, they won't see the morning. Oh, oh, oh. Only you know how she.
A pleasant good evening to one and all. I would like to welcome you to our 11th episode on Heavenly Medicine. I am your host, Dr. Zayniah Louison, and with me this evening we have our guest, Mr. DJ Saby, joining us this evening.
I like that, Mr. DJ Saby. How are you winning down today?
Oh boy.
Blessed good evening to you,
Good evening.
Hope family, and Dr. Zayniah Louison, you see that? I thank you for, inviting me today. I was a bit surprised, I was shocked. And I was like, wow, I'm invited to Heavenly Medicine. This is so amazing. All right, let me stop tickling.
You're playing around, yes. Okay, guys. So this evening, our topic is obesity and weight management. So it's a pleasure this evening. We have DJ Saby with us, where we're going to just chat a little bit about obesity. And obesity is something that many populations suffer, whether we are in the Caribbean, in the US, Europe. It's something that we really would like to address this evening on Heavenly Medicine. We just would like to welcome all our viewers, all our listeners, those on the YouTube platform. Good evening to you. Those on Facebook, those that are joining us on the air 103.1 FM. We just want to say good afternoon to you and blessings. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for coming in. I know it's a rainy evening, so we hope that talking about obesity and weight management would actually help. I hope it does not sour your evening, because we will be talking about food, you know.
Yeah.
So I think we're ready. It's kind of nice to have a male perspective as well, as we talk about some of the issues that we as women also face with obesity, whether a certain appearance looks or is obesity or not, what the society sees it as, is it preferred, etc. All right, so just to begin, guys, we welcome you to share your comments. We welcome you to ask questions. You can even call in. Our number is 403-1031. So you can WhatsApp us, or you can actually call in and share some of your testimonials. we're very much interested in even the way you would have, if you have battled with obesity, what are some of the things, ways you was able to treat it, etc. So, we're excited to hear from you this evening as we get into obesity and weight management.
All right. So let's get into it.
All right. So what is obesity? All right. So when we talk about obesity, right, obesity is actually an excess body weight, right? So it is defined as a body mass index, which you hear, many people would hear this BMI, right? So maybe when you go to your doctor or your physician, family doctor, you would always hear about this BMI.
Right.
Even when people have to do, I think, your medicals, like with insurance and so, you would always see that on the health form.
Very
they
important.
would always want to know your BMI,
Well,
which
they
is
want to know your weight. They basically would ask you your weight and your height. They won't ask you directly.
It's there on the form
but
for your
there,
doctor to
your
do.
weight and your height.
Yes.
And that is what he's going to use. And your age, of course, which is also on the form, the same information. They're going to use that to determine your BMI. And that could be good or bad for you. Continue.
All right, my doctor here. So he's explaining
I'm just
exactly
saying,
how we are. No, he's a good sport, right? So he's actually which is very true. So he's actually explaining to us how we go about getting the BMI. All right. So the body mass index, actually, when it's more than or equal to 30 kilograms per meter squared, that's when you are in the category of being obese. All right. Now, when it's within a less than or equal to 29.9, that's when we're talking about being overweight. But we're going to look at the definition of obesity.
Right.
All right. So just in general, we just want a general scope of obesity. Some of the complications would include cardiovascular disorders, which in general we say like heart disease. All right. This is particularly in people with excess abdominal fat. Right, the girt area, right, the abdominal area, it's very big. Also, people that have metabolic syndromes like diabetes mellitus, cholelithiasis, this is gallbladder disease, fatty liver, cirrhosis, osteoarthritis, reproductive disorders in men and in women, psychological disorders, and for people with BMI that are greater than or equal to 35. This can also premature death.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very dangerous thing.
All right. So basically, how would you diagnose someone with obesity? Would be, as DJ just told us, DJ Saby just mentioned, would be measuring your body mass index. And yes, it's where you would have to measure, you would have to know what their weight in kilograms, you have to know their height, and this is then divided, and it's your actual BMI is determined. All right. So in general, again, treatment for obesity, we're looking at different lifestyle modifications, and that's what we want to get into today. As for instance, example, diet, physical activity, and behavior. Right? And for certain patients, of course, drugs or bariatric surgery would be recommended.
To drop something real quick right here, there's a thing we use in insurance, for example, and anybody buying insurance, I know we're not talking about that, but just to show the importance of it, even if you're buying it for your child, we have a chart for boys and there's a chart for girls. In fact, you could just check it out on the internet, just type up a normal weight for a boy, age, whatever the child ages, and you would get that chart that shows you what is acceptable according to
in terms of the milestone for that child.
So it's also good. You can use that based on your child's age and look at his weight, and it will tell as a parent if you're doing a good job or if you need to adjust some things. So very important. Yeah.
And I think these are things that sometimes parents don't really, I mean, you're growing your children, you're educating them, you're feeding them, you're clothing them. So sometimes I think in general, when it comes to children, parents look at it as I'm taking care of my child, and it doesn't really look at, in the case of obesity, as being a challenge in childhood. But as we continue with the show, we're going to actually talk about obesity in childhood. All right. Okay, so here are some statistics that was found, all right? So in the year of 2017 and also in 2018, research have shown that over 42.4% of adults were obese. All right. Now, these statistics are basically taken from, this is US statistics, right? And in terms of obesity, research has been done within that population, right? As compared to our population where research has not been done. So we're going to use this population and its research in order to show and compare, right, the statistics. So prevalence was lowest among the non-Hispanic Asian adults, right, which was 17.4% as compared to the non-Hispanic blacks, which was 49.6%. Hispanics was 44.8%, and the non-Hispanic whites was 42.2% of the adults. Now, there were no significant difference in prevalence between men and women among the non-Hispanic white, the non-Hispanic Asian, or the Hispanic adults. However, the prevalence among the non-Hispanic black women was calculated as 56.9%, which was higher than all the other groups. So here again, we're seeing that the black population, you're actually seeing an increased percentage as pertaining to obesity. Now, the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, which is the CDC, had some data out which actually showed that in the year 2019, they found that 20% of more adults, right, and 18.5% of children within the age of 2 to 9 years old in the US were impacted by obesity. It also showed in the year 2020 that over 66% of Americans were overweight or obese.
That's almost the entire population, guys.
So this was some very, interesting data, right? And as we were talking, Saby, you remember I asked you, what do you think would be the result, or did you see some type of relationship between the fact that in the year 2020, this increased population of Americans was actually overweight? What do you think could contributed to that?
A lifestyle and what you consume, what you eat. So your lifestyle, how you treat yourself overall, and what you eat.
Yeah. And again, what was going on in 2020? What were some of the things that happened to us in 2020?
In 2019 to 2020 to 2021, guys, all it was just home hibernating.
On serious lockdown.
Level of hibernation definitely is going to cause some problem. And that's why so many persons were encouraged, put on a YouTube video and do some exercise in the house. Be careful of what you eat. Because that period alone could actually cause you to be sick in the future. So most persons end up being obese just because of the COVID lockdown,
which actually encourage a sedentary lifestyle. So you pretty much would have been home snacking. You're on lockdown. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. The gyms are closed. So that it really it impacted many people's lives greatly. So so it makes sense that we actually saw such an increase in obesity and such an increased percentage of persons suffering with obesity within the year 2020.
Persons having to work from home, as our friend just commented. That's one of the things also that has definitely impacted persons' weight.
Exactly. It's COVID-19, but we would the great COVID-19, right? That had many of us at home, and many people can attest to that. Even in our population, in our society, that we were on lockdown. You had, whenever you got a chance to go to the supermarket, you would buy large amounts of food because you don't know when you would have an opportunity again to go to the supermarket. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainties around that time, so you would actually find people snacking more than they would ever snack before. Instead of buying the little pack of the snacks, you'll buy the bigger pack, and you find yourself maybe finishing that pack in a day, which you would have never done before. So as we get into the etiology, or say the causes of obesity, so there's a lot of different causes of obesity. Now, some of them are, we can say, multifactorial, and these include like genetic predisposition. So we have multifactorial factors, and we also have genetic predispositions that can lead to obesity. So obesity results from a long-standing imbalance now between energy intake and energy expenditure, right? Including the energy that we use for our basic metabolic processes and the energy that is used up from physical activity. So it's kind of like going to a bank, right? Is you deposit monies in and you withdraw. Right. So again, the amount that you take in, you have to be able to burn that out as energy. Right. So now if there's an imbalance between the two, then that would then lead to obesity. All right. So go ahead.
You don't want to be putting in so much that you won't have need for. You know, I mean, the bank analogy had me smiling because I'm like, I mean, maybe people are saving up. You know, so you put in more and you try to take out less, and then your bank account will actually grow. So think about it when she says the bank, using the analogy of the bank or the example of the bank, you kind of have a similar kind of thing happening. But if you keep taking out most of your monies, then you know your bank account will remain slim or next to nothing. So
slim, exactly.
But just a note here also, we're not one thing we don't want to be said is that we're not coming on anybody, and this program is not to make you feel less of a person. This
Absolutely
is strictly
not.
to help. You understand? So you can know what you're dealing with, you can get the knowledge, and then you can apply it. You can understand a few things about yourself. Of course, you don't have all the answers, but if you pay close attention, I'm sure Doc is going to do a wonderful job.
I will try
and you
my
will leave
best.
knowledgeable this evening. All right? So
I would definitely
just
try
need to
my
put that
best.
one in there.
Okay. So some of the genetic factors that we would like to look into, right? So heritability of your BMI is it's 66%. Now, genetic factors may affect the many signaling molecules and receptors used by parts of the actual brain, and that area would be what we call the hypothalamus and the gastrointestinal tract, which is our stomach, right? Well, we'll just say in general, the stomach, right? To actually regulate food intake. Now, what has studies has actually proven that there are some areas where persons, based on their genetics, I'm just going to bring that in there, is actually these hormones, right, that aid in satiety and aid in hunger. Now, they are called leptin and ghrelin. Now, what happens is that there are some persons, based on their genetics, these they have what we will call leptin insensitivity.
Right.
All right. So as a result, what you would find when a person has a greater insensitivity when pertaining to the hormone leptin, they actually have increased adipose tissues. Right. Meaning they have a bigger body mass.
Right.
Now, as a result, that's why you notice, if your mom or your grandmother had some type of size, you notice no matter what you do from the time you hit puberty, you yourself gain that size, right? It's genetics. And naturally, as a result of increased adipose tissue, which is fat, that leptin, there's more leptin in the body. It actually secretes more leptin, right? So the fat tissues would secrete that hormone.
Wow.
The more fat you have is the more insensitive that hormone becomes to its receptors. Now, leptin, the function of leptin actually is going to tell you it's actually a satiety hormone. So it's going to say, I'm satisfied. Enough is enough. You've had enough. Whereas the ghrelin is going to be saying, hey, I'm hungry. I need something to eat. Right? So now persons that have either an increased body mass, most of these persons would have increased leptin, and as a result, they are at a greater risk of having that leptin insensitivity, which would decrease the ability for the brain to get that signal to say, you're satisfied, I've actually had enough. So the more you increase your body mass and the more there's adipose tissues, the more also your ghrelin will become actually saying, look, I'm hungry. So the signaling for that hormone is not going to say, you know what? It's always going to be hungry, whether you had a meal or before a meal. All right. And these are the things that predispose many people to obesity. All right. So that's how hereditary in terms of hormones, and so it plays a role.
So when you have that kind of problem there where your body can't tell if you're filled and you just ate a lot, you still feel like you could eat again after a short period of time. Because I'm asking now, is there a particular amount of time in where food will be properly digested in your body, and then you excrete it, and then you could say, okay, well, fine, that process is done. Maybe I can go again. But some people now, I guess what you're saying, if that particular hormone is not working properly, they ain't even go through that cycle yet, but then they're hungry again.
Yeah, because okay, so now this is in terms of regulation. So you're dealing with these specific hormones, how they act on the GI system, and then also how they act on the brain. Right. So if these hormones, and specifically, they are either there's insensitivity or a decrease in that hormone, it doesn't tell the brain that enough is enough. Right. And the bigger you are, the more chances you would have that insensitivity.
That kind of way.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel you.
All right. So that's in terms of like genetics. Also, another receptor that usually there's some type of abnormality is what we call the melanocortin 4 receptors, and like these also have to do with sleep as well. All right, and they affect like the circadian rhythm, and as a result you find people eating all hours of the night. These also affect the ability to stop or the ability to eat as well.
And you see, that's why it's important to get enough rest. Put your body to sleep, because when you're sleeping you don't feel hungry.
No, but if you decide to stay up late in the
No
night, you
problem.
definitely will be. So the body doesn't know, okay, this is time for rest. So as a result, you will be hungry because
And
once
then
you're up.
the thing you do is eat whatever is available. So if you have some bread in the freezer at 12 o'clock in the night, that's a lot of carbs to be putting in. You ain't going out and walk it out. You don't have a whole day ahead of you to use up that energy. Instead, you put it in and you go to bed.
Right away. Right away. All right.
So you feel sleepy after you eat it, eh?
Yep.
Amazingly.
Yep.
So...
Yeah,
This is the point.
definitely. So this ghrelin, what it does, it's actually secreted primarily by our stomach, and it increases food intake. All right. So the more ghrelin you have, right, the more it would actually increase food intake. Right. So these hormones, they actually have to balance off each other. And as a result, that is when we're able to manage, like with a healthy person, healthy size, they're able to manage because the body's secreting these hormones at a normal level.
Okay.
And there's no abnormality between the two. All right. Just to add, in terms of, I was mentioning earlier that the same leptin, this is a satiety hormone. And in many people that would we say obese, they actually have a decreased concentration of leptin in their actual bodies.
Okay.
Actually, what happens
Repeat
there
that for me.
is,
Repeat that for me.
persons that have leptin, right? As a result, the more obese you are, the most leptin will be secreted, but it would have an increase in insensitivity. Yeah. All right. Okay. So again, when it comes to food, satiety and hunger, all of this plays a role with the brain. Okay. So we have the limbic system in the brain. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. So this limbic system, it actually would mediate what we call the hedonistic pathway for food intake, right? And this includes like cravings, habits, and rewards. Now, so the desire to actually eat can override any type of homeostatic pathways because emotion and stress has been shown to affect this regulatory peptide such as the ghrelin, right? And these effects are mediated also by other hormones and so on, such as dopamine. All right. So other factors besides genetic factors can also be environmental factors. Now, these environmental factors are factors that we definitely can control. Now, we cannot control our genes, where we came from, what race you came from, whether African American, whether Afro-Caribbean, Asian. We can't control that, right? But for sure, we can control in terms of our environmental factors, right? And with the environmental factors, that would definitely, we're looking here at our diet, our portion size. What do we take in, right? Now, of course, we know the more food we eat, the more our calorie intake. As a result, the more we will gain weight. All right? Yeah? Make sense?
I'm here with you. I'm just thinking at the same time because I'm trying to like be practical now, and that's along the line I was going because some people, when they are hungry, they can't control it. You understand?
I mean, you can't control it.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to control staying away from food. It's like when you're hungry because you know there's food, you just have to eat. you know.
That has to do with the discipline and the mind. The mind plays a great role.
When you talk about the brain and how the brain interprets stuff.
Yes, and
So-
the limbic system it deals with emotions.
Right.
So as you feel, it's how you feel. And if food makes you feel better, trust me, you will eat, and you will eat, because if eating food it's like a comfort to you, you will definitely eat. Okay, so I just want to just get back a little bit in terms of the environmental factors. I would like us to look at in our portion size, and this is what we were talking about earlier in the different races.
Yeah.
Right, in terms of like the Caribbean family, especially long ago. Now we have many people are so educated.
Yeah, we try. I
You know.
think people are trying much more these days.
Yes.
Than back then, because as a child growing up, when Sunday comes along, my plate is filled with rice and peas, macaroni pie, a little bit of provision on the side, some stewed chicken or turkey, or some back and egg with the fat. I love the piece of the end with, the jelly kind of fatty spot. I would eat that like crazy. Yeah, looking at me like I'm going crazy. But really and truly, these are the things that you grew up on. And macaroni pie seems to be like an excellent food to eat. And, obviously you're not saying it's bad. You could eat it in small portions, but it's like, it tastes so good that you don't want to eat it in small portion. You just always want it.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
if you were trained, the older you get, the more food you eat. Right.
That's the next
So the
part.
more portion, the greater the portion on the plate.
Yeah.
All right. But as we can see, what is happening, the more we eat and the greater the portions, the more the increased risk of obesity.
Yeah.
Right. So these also play a great role, especially also energy density of foods, like in terms of a high carbohydrate diet or
some of these foods, though,
processed foods.
Right. Yeah.
Right. These also play a great role in terms of fat at building the adipose tissues. For instance, even the consumption of a soft drink versus
Right.
water. Right. Fruit juices, some juices or processed drinks. Right. Alcohol consumption, these also promote weight gain. All right. So in terms of, we have to look at how these portions, how they actually, the more we eat, or do we actually there's two things. So we have to look into the portion size and what we eat.
Right.
Okay, so as we decrease the actual portion size, that's one, it will help, but also the content. What do we eat also, right?
Because
will also play a role.
in reality, it's easier to eat the foods that are so common,
That are
in terms
available
of what
to
we
us.
just talked about there, in terms of high calorie foods, food high in calorie, in terms of the refined carbohydrate drinks and so on, the fruit juices or the box juices, the alcohol. Some people
They are readily available.
It's just always in your face.
Yep.
More than healthy stuff. And I said to someone just the last time, I said, "Well, nobody sells healthy food in town, and you cannot get hungry after 4 and be in St. George's, because all you're going to get if you're trying to eat and live healthy." And at that time, I don't know about you, but when you're hungry in the afternoon, if you eat well during the day, and then your body obviously beat that out fast because you didn't put a whole lot of junk inside there. So obviously, you had some nice steamed vegetables, you eat certain things, but obviously you eat it at a certain time. But then unlike eating the pie, which takes forever to digest, and the pork and so on, which takes a while to digest in the stomach, you eat something light and healthy. So obviously by the evening time now, you're so hungry, you didn't get home as yet. I'm being practical here. And now you're in town, and you get hungry, and all you can get is some sweet bread somewhere. Yeah, you might go and get some fast food, not calling no names. But the point is, this is what is available, and that's the thing. That's what you're saying, like the environmental factors.
Yeah.
It works against you, and you go get some pizza or something, and these things,
Because what's
especially at the
readily
time of the
available at
afternoon,
the time.
So
And we could definitely work around it, I mean, there's ways that we could work around it, but then that goes into diet modifications and planning and all of that.
Yeah.
You could definitely work around it. I mean, you may be giving somebody a business idea, because I know there's a very interesting place now that sells salad bowls, right? So sometimes maybe from opening, closing at 4 p.m. or closing at 5, maybe they can definitely open to about 8. They might definitely have some customers.
Yeah, but the downside sometimes is that it's cheaper sometimes to buy
Oh yeah.
the junk.
Oh,
or
yes.
like buying the healthy stuff, and that's the things that people have to deal with. So I mean, if you walk with some protein in your pocket, simple, like some nuts or something
Yeah.
of that sort in your bag,
Yeah.
you get hungry that time in the afternoon, that's a quick fix, and it's not an unhealthy fix. You
It is a
understand?
good snack.
You have a fruit inside there, just something to keep you until they get home to prepare something healthy to eat. So you have to become proactive and conscious of what you're doing, or else you will just fall prey to it. You
Yes.
understand? Now, you say it every now and then you can take a little bite, but when it becomes a habitual thing, I think that's when it get really, really, really bad, and the repercussion for these actions, you know?
Yeah, and even as you was talking about that, what came to my mind too in terms of accessibility and also cost. Now, it's also good to, I would definitely recommend that you grow what you eat, and also not just grow what you eat, those actual fruits that are in season.
Yeah.
You know, I thank God that we are in the Caribbean where, you know, it's not a concrete jungle most of us would live in, you
Could
know.
always carry
Thank
a
God for
mango in your
that.
bag to work,
Even
man.
if you don't have it, maybe the neighbor have, you know.
Yeah.
And you could always ask, you know, Mr. Brown, Mrs., you know. At least, you know, could I get 2 mangoes? And, you know, we living in a society that at least we know this is possible.
Yeah.
You know, we might not be able to get the watermelon or the grapes or the you know, those type of fruits, but at least we might be able to definitely get some of those fruits and vegetables that are seasonal. They're there. Sometimes they fall in under someone's tree just wasting.
True.
So it's really good to whatever is in season is what we need to take. We definitely want to take advantage of
That,
and
yeah.
have these as our fruit. Yes, you might say, I don't want to have it every day, but at least you could have a few. You have some ripe ones, you have some green ones,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and you could
And you
have
know-
those really help.
And it's very easy to know what's in season. You just walk around the tongue and you see it. It's that simple.
Who's selling,
You
exactly.
understand? It's that simple.
Yes.
So you can always know what's in season.
Yeah.
If you don't have the tree, and you're in St. George's, you're in St. John, anywhere you are, someone will be selling what is in season. I know yeah, the prices will be kind of high still again,
It's
but
true.
at the same time, it's healthier.
Yes.
You know,
and it's good, as I say, look at within the community. I mean, I know some people, I mean, we had a tangle, we still somewhat, you know, living in a society that could be generous, that we could still ask the neighbor
Yeah, the
for a
neighbor
piece
for
of
some of that,
breadfruit,
and they won't feel
you
no
know,
hope. Yeah.
yeah, you know, so especially mango. Ooh, I love mangoes.
So you
but-
say, ask the neighbor for a piece of breadfruit.
yeah, it's available, you know, so at least you can ask, you know. So when it comes to fruits and so, we at least can, you know,
Yeah,
get some of
definitely.
those. I'd like to share with us a little later on some of the glycemic index for some of the foods that we actually have available in our community, right? As we get into a little bit more into that. So also, as we mentioned earlier, sedentary lifestyle will promote weight gain as well, right? And we talk about the whole COVID, we talk about the lockdown, and that also did contribute to persons gaining weight.
Yeah.
All right. So DJ Saby, some actual data that I found, right? And this is pertaining to childhood obesity that I would like to share with our viewers and listeners. Okay, so because when you think about childhood obesity, you would always think that the parents are just feeding the child. Everything the child wants, you give the child. You want fast food? Yes,
Yeah,
mommy.
it.
You can have it, right? Snacks in galore, you can have it. The child gives a temper tantrum, you give them a snack. You give them, you know, that is how most times we think. Why we see a child that is overweight and we would say, the parents spoiling that one, right? But what I've found is that based on some research, I've actually found that adverse childhood events, right, or abuse in early childhood increase the risk of several disorders, including obesity. So actual obesity was one of the, it's actually abuse contributed to obesity. All right. Now, the CDC, which is the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, right, they said that adverse childhood events study demonstrated that childhood history of verbal, physical, or sexual abuse predicted an 8% increased risk of a BMI greater than 30 and 17.3% of a BMI greater than 40. Now, certain types of abuse carry the strongest risk. For example, frequent verbal abuse had the largest increase in risk, right, with a percentage of 88% for a BMI greater than 40. Being often hit and injured increased the risk of BMI more than 30 by 71%. And this actually blew my mind, all right? Because this is only based on a study. Because naturally we would think childhood obesity would just be the child just eating, or the mom, the parents, actually, I wouldn't say mom, the parents just giving them too much to eat.
Yeah.
And because you remember it's a child and you're training that child. So as the child is going to learn from patterns, right? So as every time we go out, you give a snack. We go to a different environment, a snack is given. You go to church, you get a snack. You go to the mall, you get a snack. So that's a natural way to think.
Yeah.
So this actual research really brought some, it really had me looking into certain things you would see among our population, and instead of just having that narrow mindset of believing it just has to do with just the parents, in terms of giving too much to eat, but it can actually be a result of abuse.
Well, that's so interesting. And it's amazing when you see how the kids, we talked about the brain earlier on and how the body respond because of the various hormones and so on. And children that receive snacks every particular time, they become spoiled by that. So if you're accustomed giving a child a snack 2 o'clock every day, the child will look forward for that snack.
It's conditioned.
And
they are conditioned.
You understand? So if you're giving them something healthy that time, and they can look forward for some fruits at that time instead of a greasy snack or something that is filled with sugary or salty that could affect the child in the long run. As a parent, I believe you should take control of what you give to that child and ensure, because the thing is, it's going to hurt your pocket in the long run. If you don't pay attention to it now, later you will definitely have to pay attention to it. And not only that, it can hurt the child based on the society that we live in. Children walk around feeling a bit low in self-confidence because the society, the world is not, loving people who are a particular weight. And you as a parent now, you may just be a part of that, and it becomes harder for you to deal with the monster that you just created if a check comes in. So it's important as parents that we pay attention to how we deal with our children, because
definitely
it is their mental health, also the emotional health that's going to be affected.
That is true.
In the
that
future.
Is true. That is true. And as you mentioned, the mental health and the emotional health. Now, these are also what will contribute to emotional eating, right? So as you continue to verbally abuse this child, whether you're not as good as your brother, you're not as good or whatever, or whatever in terms of comparison or peer pressures, whatever it may be. This definitely, whether, as we just mentioned, verbal abuse, physical abuse. No, this can definitely, it plays an impact. It plays a great role in terms of the emotion of this child.
Right.
So definitely all of these play a role in terms of the emotional eating. It plays a role, binge eating, just the feeling that maybe to comfort me. Right?
I thought though, how do just a thought, how can a parent help a child who probably might just be a little bit overweight, or their BMI is not where it's supposed to be. And sometimes in speaking to that child, it's so easy sometimes to make them feel less. You may not mean bad, you understand, because you may realize your child take up some bad habits. Or maybe the same thing we talk about because of what's happening in their body. You don't know what they're feeling, so they want to eat so much more than they're supposed to. And they just finish eating and they're telling you they're hungry. And so how do you as a parent, I'm just asking you the question, I'm the parent here, I know, but nonetheless I'm asking you the question, how do you then as a parent help that child without damaging the child's
their ego,
their confidence, self-confidence, how do you help that child? What do you recommend we do?
I mean, well, first of all, it begins with communication, all right? So in how you communicate as a parent, right? Because naturally, sometimes we grew up in a society where, and sometimes based on culture, the Caribbean culture, certain things are said in a way, and it's expected that you should be okay with it because that's how we speak, right? So it's all about the way we communicate. And children are very, very, very intelligent in our today's society.
True.
They understand everything that you say. So in the first place of saying, I know you're not too happy with your weight. You know, I understand, you know, I see that you're a little bit self-conscious when you're among your friends, you know, and you could bring in the certain things that you have observed. For instance, simple things like going to the pool or going swimming. Especially, forget, we're looking at a young girl or we're looking at a young boy. Let's just look at a male, for instance. Right? So now based on the body mass, he might be a little bit chubby compared to the other friends, right? So he has, you know, he may not have what the term we would call gynecomastia, which is male breast. But, you know, it might be a little bit chubby there in the pectoral area, you know, in the chest area.
Yeah.
So, you know, he may feel a little bit insecure. He might want to be able to take off the t-shirt and, you know, and actually even sports, right? So he may not want or undress among the other boys, you know, during recess or whatever. So, you know, sometimes a parent can talk to their children about that. You know, how do you feel about that? Do you are you okay with it? You could even ask, because you have noticed the weight gain. So you can also have anybody in school been bullying you, even if they may not admit it, but you want to have that dialogue with your child, because you're home, you are that comfort, you are that safe place. You want to create that environment where your child is going to be comfortable to be able to speak with you and to be able to say, you know, mom, dad, you know, based on the questions you ask, you know, I really think maybe I think we can work on it. And you have that dialogue. What do you think we can do? Would you like to go out to the playing field? Or, you know, you want us to go jog together? Do you want to swim? Is there an activity that you would like, a recreational activity that you would like to take part in? What do you like? So from there, even from age, from the moment they can walk, you already start to engage your child as to like what type of activities they like. You look at them, you watch. So, you know, and we're talking about physical activities, right? Certain type of sports, right? So whether, you know, it's swimming, you try to get them involved so that, you know, they keep fit and they are involved in physical activities. We are living in an era where it's all about social media. It's all about having your computer, all about having your tablet and phone, right? It's not in the times when we were children and we were outside riding bicycles. The amount of scars I have from riding a bicycle, like seriously, like it's not funny, you know, and we were out playing games, we were out running. Now it's a different ball game.
True.
Right. So it's something that the parents can definitely just have these general dialogues, you know, with your children, asking them, you know what, you know, I noticed you put on a little weight, you know, recently. How you feel about that? Anybody been picking on you at school? And you would get that feedback. You would see, because even when they're among other, whether siblings or other friends, you can see either they'll be a little bit, you can see the insecurity. So as a parent, then you will know, okay, you know what? Let's start doing, and even if they say no, you can actually go along with them. Let's go take a jog on Friday evenings. Let's do this and help motivate them to actually work on it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You sound like a parent.
Who told you I'm not?
Well, okay, spiritual mother.
Yeah. That is true. Yes. Yeah. So, you know, so these are also, so I found it so interesting in terms of the verbal abuse, because there is also emotional eating that will lead to the obesity, right? So, also insufficient sleep, right? Right. What research has found that if you have like less than 6 to 8 hours a night rest, this can result in weight gain.
Okay.
Right, by changing the levels of the satiety hormones that actually promote hunger. So these hormones can mess you up.
And, you know, and most people feel like, okay, without that knowledge, most people might feel like, well, if I sleep less, then they feel like, you're sleeping a lot, your mind rests, so you're putting on weight. But there, in reality, is actually sleep is part of the dynamics to help you to stay healthy.
That's very correct.
So
that is very correct. And just to add, naturally, our bodies work in such a way, it's all about hormones and it's all about like balance. So for instance, if the body has realized, wait now, you know what? Saby, you're only getting like 4 hours rest. What happens is that the body starts to secrete cortisol, this other hormone. It starts to secrete these stress hormones because it's saying you have to be in some type of stress state.
Oh.
So when the body reads, right, or interprets that you're in a stress state, now what happens is that it changes the whole dynamics, right? So one, whenever you eat, it sees that, you know what, I'm going to store that glucose. So instead, the body's not going to be increasing metabolism and break down that type of, that glucose. Okay. What it's going to do, every time you eat, it's going to store that glucose, and that sugars are then going to be stored as fats. All right. Now, that cortisol also, what it does, it increases fat buildup, right? It also, the liver itself, it tells the liver, you know what? This person needs glucose, and the liver starts to create its own glucose as well.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. So you would even find that, wait a minute, from the moment you said that you're stressed, if you're an emotional eater, then you would start to eat more. Wow. The body decides that you're stressed, and it will start to produce its own glucose by the liver. And instead of burning that sugar that you have eaten from your last meal, it will leave it in the blood, thinking you're in a fight and flight state. All right. So it's something that your sleep, everything needs to be balanced. Or else the body would think, you know what? We need to definitely have sugar in this body for you to work, right? And to stay up and work, right?
Wow.
Yeah. And just to mention, go ahead.
Case, though, can you have any sort of healthy sugars?
Well, I mean, when we're talking about healthy sugars, in what way?
Some people would say fruits, you know?
Well, I mean, okay, so in terms of these would be our actual healthy sugars. Any type of sugars that you get from fruits will be healthy sugars.
Too much of it.
Right? But then again, right.
And the timing.
So again, because something I would like to share, like in terms of the glycemic index, right? Let me just give you an example. Processed sugar or white cane sugar, we'll be like, oh my God, I don't want to add sugar to my food. I'd rather have honey. Now, based on studies, the actual glycemic index of honey is way more than the white cane sugar. But in terms of the processing of the white sugar, it is broken down quicker into glucose.
Right.
Whereas honey would have the sucrose, honey would have the fructose and the glucose. Right? But in terms of the glycemic index is higher. Right? And I guess in terms of the nature of honey, maybe you can actually take a little teaspoon and it can sweeten your tea.
Yeah.
All right. So I'd still like to show us a little bit more of the different foods as we get into it a little bit later.
Right.
But I'd like to talk about some of the eating disorders that do contribute to weight gain. Right. Now, these eating disorders, one, you have the binge eating disorders. Now, the binge eating disorder is the consumption of large amounts of food quickly with a subjective sense of loss of control during the binge and distress after it. So you would eat, and then after you're like, whoa, boy, I should not have done that. But in this case, it's not like bulimia nervosa. In this case, there's no vomiting or anything after binging.
Eating remorse.
So you have no remorse. You just eat.
And then you feel bad or no?
You feel bad after.
Yeah,
you definitely feel bad after.
Eating remorse, man. You feel remorse because you know you just throw down too much that
you shouldn't have.
And by the way, people know that's a sin, eh?
Yeah. It's gluttony. It's actually gluttony.
Yeah.
Here we have I think we have someone just shared snacking, perhaps share healthy snacks ideas instead of sunshine snacks. Yeah, that's the is Mommy Tammy?
Don't call name, please. She can't be sued right now because she's in Canada, so Mommy, you can say what you want.
Yeah, so definitely, as we did mention some of our local fruits, though. We did mention substituting the processed snacks, the chips, the biscuits, the sweet biscuits and so. And we want to substitute those snacks into the fruits, the celery sticks, the carrot sticks. And, something I noticed also, carrots are very sweet as well.
Yeah.
Beets are very sweet as well.
Can you eat beets raw?
Yeah, you can eat beets
Most people
raw.
don't know that.
You can definitely eat
Take
beets
care of it,
raw.
okay.
It's the same because it's like a root. It's just as the carrots. They're sweet.
That's right.
And you can substitute those as, your carrot sticks. You can mix
So,
it with
funny
celery.
enough, in all my life, I just started eating raw beets or drinking it.
Yeah.
It was only this week.
Congratulations to you.
And then Gat was like yesterday, boy, right now, I'm eating the beets raw. I'm like, me too. We didn't talk about it. And I was looking at something. I was like, oh, I never knew you could eat the beets raw.
Yes, you can. And
so
it's
I start
sweet. It's
blending
really,
it-
really sweet.
Start blending with carrots and some ginger and some other bits. And it tastes really good,
Oh, yes. And I like that. She also mentioned and breadfruit sticks. Yeah. And this is something like I always say, like when we're in the Caribbean, we don't have an excuse, to be honest. We really, breadfruit is something.
It's really good, boy.
Yes, it's a high
Tell you
carbohydrate
guys where you can
food.
get it,
But breadfruits, I mean, you can do so much with breadfruit.
Yeah.
But again, instead of the the potatoes, you can use the breadfruits to actually make the chip
Let's
as
get
well.
that one right. Instead of the Irish potatoes.
Yeah,
you can
instead of the
use-
Irish
'cause
potatoes,
the sweet
you can use
potatoes,
that.
locally grown, very healthy stuff.
Very healthy
Yeah.
because these also they definitely would increase your basal metabolic rate. So they help burn fats. Yeah, so
Okay.
sweet potatoes are excellent.
Wonderful. I don't mean
Excellent.
you have to go and chop down a whole lot of it. Not because it's good, mean that you have to overdo it. You understand?
Yes. So
It's
as we were
important.
talking about the binge eating, okay, so you kind of help now, right, gauge me a little bit.
Yeah.
So we were talking that the binge eating disorders, right, occurs in about 3.5% of women and 2% of men during their lifetime, and in about 10 to 20% of people enter in weight reduction programs, right? So obesity is usually severe in large amounts of weight. Obesity is usually severe, right? Large amounts of weight are frequently gained or lost, and pronounced psychologic disturbances are present. So I just want to get into the binge eating a little bit more. Now, what happens is that we notice that persons that do those weight programs or those drastic weight programs to lose weight, they have found that binge eating disorders is common among this population of people. And why? What happens is that, picture this, right? I was looking at a program recently. It was pertaining to a couple. So they are about to get married. So they decided to lose weight together as a team, which I found to be really nice. All right. The husband and wife, they were very supportive towards each other, and they decided, you know what, we're going to do this program together. So the goal was to lose a certain amount of pounds collectively, right? So what happened was that the actual husband, when the coach, so they had a coach, and that coach now would help them with dietary modifications, what are some of the foods they have to eat, stop eating certain things, etc. So they had their meal plan set, everything was set for them. They had a physical trainer, they had everything pretty much set for them, right? But when the coach returned to evaluate their weight, the husband was actually confessing of his binge eating events. So he was actually confessing of nights that he actually snuck out the house and went to a fast food joint to actually eat food, So he wasn't able to achieve his target at that time. So you find it a lot because why? It's not something that they have gradually got into.
Yeah.
It was something that was drastic. It was new
Shock
to
on
the
your
body.
body. Yeah.
Right. So even though you have a coach, yes, you're continuing with the coach, you're getting that support. So you're really good. You're feeling good about it. But the brain, the mind is like, whoa, I haven't had that pizza in a long time. I haven't had that fried chicken in a long time. And that is why, in my personal opinion, will be in terms of a balanced diet and decreasing your portion sizes would definitely give you more of a permanent and a consistent improvement than that drastic weight loss.
Whoosh.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, and it actually messes with them psychologically as well, because if they don't, it's a lot of pressure as well to lose that weight, because remember, it's either a weight program, you have to pay for it, so it adds a lot of pressure as well on you. And the moment that pressure is now gone, what happens?
You come back to what you used to do.
You go back to what
And
you
your
used
body
to do.
just return to whatever it was.
All right.
Sometimes even worse.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
You ever
Yeah.
tried to stop eating bread before?
Oh yes, of course.
How hard was it?
That was very hard, but it's based on what I was conditioned. We were conditioned, like bread was something that you, from since you're little, you know it's in the house. I was
Sing a
conditioned.
song about that one. Bread
Right?
in the morning, bread in the evening, bread
Every day, right? And it was something that no way you would have thought that, oh, this has high carbohydrates.
Yeah.
No, it's bread. You have bread for breakfast. Sometimes you even have bread at lunch at school.
Bread
When you
at
get
night.
home, you might have a meal, and you might still have for dinner. You may have bread again. So bread is a challenge for many people.
True.
Right? And again, as you mentioned earlier, remember it's easily accessible.
Yeah.
It's cheap, right? So it definitely can feed a family. You buy one bag of bread and it's like, that's it, right? Because it's needed, right? But as adults now, as you get older and your understanding in terms of like the calorie intake carbohydrates has, so then you know now, okay, so I have to help myself because I've been conditioned for so long. Instead of having 3 slices, maybe I
Right.
should cut down to 2
2,
slices.
and eventually
then
one.
eventually one.
And find something to replace it with.
Yes. Another thing, guys, a lot
you
of
know,
times, I'm gonna just share in terms of the bread and the crackers. So what's the hell? There's a joke between that where you know, they substitute, where you would find persons would substitute the 2
crackers,
slices of bread
bread
for the
for
crackers.
crackers, yeah.
But when you actually calculate the caloric intake, the calories, right? It might be even the exact amount, right? For the 6 crackers might be the exact calories for the same 2 slices of bread. So it's important to know the calories. When you buy your food, you look at the back, the nutritional facts,
Right.
and they would actually tell you 4 calories is equivalent to 250 kilocalories. So then you have an idea. Sometimes we have technology, we can just research. Okay, sometimes you could even put in the brand bread, and they would actually give you the actual calories for 1 slice of bread. So you're more you're eating now with wisdom, you're eating now more knowledgeable that this is the amount of calories I should be able to take in. The average person, I think, calorie intake per day is 2,000. So from that you can actually count, if you would like to help assist you. Yeah.
And if you do take in more, then you need to know what to do, and that's where even then the fasting comes in very nice, and the time that you choose to fast, as we learned in previous
with intermittent
episode.
fasting.
When you go to bed at night, if you stop eating from 6 and you don't eat until 6 the next day, that's literally a lot of hours you're not eating, so your body get an opportunity to do something very special at that time.
Recovery.
But if you eat at 6 and still at 10 you're eating something again, then think about it. You're putting in way too much. You will literally see as you change your diet, and I'm talking now because I did something recently in the space of a week. I already start seeing the effects. You understand? So I went on the scale this morning.
Wow.
I said, okay, fine. Let me see what's going on. I'll continue eating. So by next week, let me see what happens. You understand?
So tell us a little bit more. So did you start doing the intermittent fasting?
No, I just started eating a little different. Cut out certain things.
How
and-
so? So tell. Okay, if you don't mind sharing, let us know what you have cut off from your diet.
All right, so rice, I eat it, but not plenty. So you won't find me eating it every day, and I don't eat it in a large quantity.
Okay.
But I replace the rice with sweet potatoes. And one of the things that I know I drink a lot is juice.
Okay.
And the juice has a lot of the refined sugars in it.
That's correct.
So that, again, will work on me. Some mornings I don't eat bread at all, or some morning I just don't eat no breakfast. You understand? But I think I'm more conscious of what I eat during the day, especially when I'm having my biggest meal. You understand? And that is, I try my best to eat something healthy. In fact, if I go to work and I don't cook lunch, I didn't prepare anything, I think about it, my day become very miserable. Because
Okay.
I know I don't want to eat some of the junk that is being sold. So
Yes.
to get down there, I'm frustrated, and I will end up not eating sometimes. But when I get home, I'm very hungry, and that's the worst part. And if I have
'Cause
nothing
then you
to
would
eat,
kill
then
the house.
I would
You
eat
would-
the bread. You understand? So it just tells us about planning. But what I did Sunday, I cut up my fruits and so on to make my little smoothie. I had some green apples, some strawberry, and a pawpaw, about a whole pawpaw. Cut it up, and I have it in bags in the fridge. So like this morning, I did like strawberry, and instead of juice, I had like a nice like a smoothie. with water in it, no milk, no sugar, nothing to sweeten it, strawberry and pawpaw. You understand?
Okay.
So I would have probably drank a glass of juice with that instead, with the bread and the thing that I had, you know. So these are the things. You may not be able
Which
to
is
get
good.
it all, but you have to be trying. I'm not an expert, but I'm
Yes.
trying to look for
Yes.
stuff, read
Yes.
stuff, and see what it does for your
Yes.
body, and put it in there. You'll become even more healthier. You know?
Yes.
So, yeah.
Another eating disorder. So thank you. Another eating disorder I just want to share with us is the night eating syndrome. Yeah. So I know some people do have different shifts. They have different hours in which they work.
Right.
Even doctors too, especially when they're on call and so on, right? But we have this eating disorder that's called a night eating syndrome. It consists of morning anorexia, right?
Right.
So anorexia is where you don't eat at all. You literally don't eat in the morning at all. It's not like you're fasting. This is your natural, that's your normal.
Is that good?
All right? It's not good, right? And then evening hypophagia, like you're eating like crazy, right? And in the night, you cannot sleep, right? So what happens? You're eating in the middle of the night.
Right.
All right. So at least 25 to 50% of the daily intake occurs after the evening meal. So picture all of that glucose you would have built up at night, right? And then after, you can't burn it out.
That's why you
So
don't even want to go to
definitely
bed.
you will gain weight.
Yeah, and you don't want to sleep at that time either.
Yeah.
You're there and like you're tossing, turning, you can't sleep because your
Yep.
body, your organs are actually doing some work when it should be resting.
Yeah. Right. And these are usually sometimes psychological, and they're usually either treated with like antidepressants or so on, SSRIs, and so in order to treat that condition.
Okay.
All right. So we just want to get in a little bit more in terms of the complication of obesity, right? So we talked about, we mentioned, I think, a little bit about diabetes, and diabetes is under what we would call metabolic syndromes. So these are some complications of obesity. Also, cardiovascular disease like heart disease. Right. We did touch a little bit of the fatty liver, whether it's alcoholic fatty liver where you drink a lot of beers, a lot of alcohol, and as a result it leads to that. Or it could actually be non-alcoholic fatty liver. The gallbladder disease, like, where you have your gallstones. You hear people say, oh, I have gallstones. Those are complications of obesity, because the more fats we eat, right, the more obese you are. The body, again, remember, the body's regulating all of these foods that are coming into our system. So the gallbladder, it's a part of the GI system, and it helps break down the fat. Now, if there's too much fat, all that bile salts that are there to help emulsify that fat, what happens? It clogs up and it becomes like a slush, because it can't break up that fat enough because we're eating too much fats. So it then develops these. Eventually, the slush or that sludge, right, of our bile becomes now salt. Sorry, not salt, but stones. And that's what actually makes the gallstones.
Okay.
Yeah, just to kind of simplify it a little bit. Is acid reflux. Yeah, acid reflux, where you eat, every time you eat, and again, the more remember we talk about like the waist circumference, the more you have a bigger abdominal girth, the more you actually, when you sleep, sometimes you don't sleep properly. All right, so what happens is that the contents in the stomach would actually come up as you sleep, and that's how you get that acid reflux, right? So obesity does play a role in that as well. Another thing, it's what we call obstructive sleep apnea, right? Now, this obstructive sleep apnea, this is where at times you will be sleeping, and while you're sleeping, what you find would happen as a result of that increased adipose tissues in the neck, and so you would find that you might actually sleep, and the fatty tissues obstructs your airway, and you actually stop breathing for a moment. And sometimes that's why you would actually find, I didn't want to be sexist and say, well, the men, but you would actually find either some, men, women, you're sleeping at night, you're like, wait a minute, when I just married her, she never used to snore like this. Or when I married him, he never used to snore like that. But they say good living actually makes people gain weight. So what happens is that, not knowing, it's the weight gain that actually contributed to the actual snoring. Yes.
All you see, all you hear, right? Yeah, then my wife take a phone and record me. Oh my God,
Yeah,
Zayniah, the girls boy.
Yeah, and it's actually the exercising helps. It actually helps.
Yeah, definitely.
Exercising actually helps, right? Because it actually decreases, and doing the neck exercises, and so they actually help, right? Decrease the obstructive sleep apnea.
Right.
All right. So another thing, just to add, as we, we could just get into the physical appearance of it, right? Now, as you increase the body folds on the body and you increase the body mass, right? What we find is that within these folds, sometimes you increase with sweat, and this sweat it's as a reservoir, and it's actually a home for bacteria, fungal infections, right? So again, hygiene is so important. As you notice the weight gain, it's also advised to definitely work on hygiene, because definitely it can lead to other infections, So that is something that, we definitely would like to, you would definitely want to address, right? Just to add, we want to get into how does it affect us socially, economically, psychologically? How does obesity affect us? And I know we kind of talked a little bit about it before, but I just throw that out. How does obesity affects anybody, whether it affects us socially, economically, psychologically?
At the end of the day, some people they are happy with who they are. And they may be obese or may even be quote unquote fat.
Yeah.
And they're okay with it. They love themselves. And I think anybody should love themselves, very importantly, because if you can love yourself, it removes that state of depression that could really come upon you and cause things to even be worse with you in terms of your overall health. So you must love yourself. But if you love yourself, you also have to understand that it's important to be the best version of yourself. And when you say you try to get all slim down like some of the people you see on the social media platforms, especially Instagram, what is being portrayed is the abs and the muscles. And I think people tend to do anything sometimes just to get to that place, to think that they will feel better about themselves, and really and truly that's not the case. Or they like the attention they would get from people sometimes. But I would still go back to say, appreciate who you are. You're beautiful and you're wonderfully made. Sometimes your situation, some of the things that you talked about earlier on, you just cannot be like that person. You understand? And don't take it bad. People might be saying things about you, but as we were speaking about earlier on, when you get to know who you are and whose you are, we're going on the spiritual side of things now. When you know you're a child of God, these things they're not supposed to affect you, but you must understand that your body is a temple. So if the point is, don't be influenced by what the world is saying to become the best version of you. Instead, become influenced by what the word is saying about you. You understand? So not what the world is saying, but what God's word is saying about you. And God's word is going to guide you along beautifully and let you know that there are things that you should do and not do. And if you obey those things and you do it just principally, you would end up having good results. As we say, if you keep putting a lot of money in the bank and you're taking out a little bit, then you'll probably be rich. So if you keep putting a lot inside of you and a certain old thing inside of you, you can't expect to get any other results, And some people really need help because it messes with their
psychological.
You understand? And that could be a problem. So don't go comparing yourself to what you see and causing it to make you feel like women want that slim waist, for example.
Because I was just going to mention that.
Yeah, and what do they do?
A lot of women, what happens is that,
it's a topic
it's a natural, it's a topic for itself. And, social media has not actually made it any easier. There's so many products out there, and in terms of how you should look, you have to take out a picture. This is how it's supposed to look, and I think we were talking about the pros and cons, because now it's all about it being thick. So sometimes, as we're talking about obesity here, you find that, again, it has to do with what society is setting the trend. So society would say there was a period where I think one of the first models, Marilyn Monroe, right? I think so. And she actually had size. So at that period, in that era, you would find that women who had size, they were quite comfortable and content with their body, right? Because it was okay. But then there was a change, a shift, where women were supposed to be looking very, very slim, right? So this is where you saw an increase in some of the eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia, where a lot of people would eat and then they would throw up and so on because they had to meet a certain type of weight. You find a lot of young women who wanted to go in certain schools where performing arts, right, where they either wanted to sing, dance, whatever it may be. You have to you have to have a certain size. I mean, let's get real. Whether you go for Miss Universe, you can't go with this is the world. The world has set the trend.
I smile because you're speaking about it and I can literally see it. How at one point in time when it was the slimmer you are, the better you are as a woman.
That is what society would say.
But now it's like women are forced to have not even a Coca-Cola bottle shape anymore, as we used to say back in the days. It seems as though they just need to have extra meat behind and slim waist. That's the thing now that's popping. You understand? So they would do a lot of exercise,
in
focusing
order to
in
build,
certain places to build that, and they would tie their tummy with these tight bands and so on.
Waist trainers,
just to get a particular look and a particular shape.
But that tells you. So is your goal?
As far as to put on silicone. Places.
So but my question is to you, is the goal health or is the goal in terms of your physique, appearance, right? So our goal should be to attain good health, right? Now, of course, your appearance matters, how you want to present yourself in society. It's yours. It's your prerogative. But this is the pressures that we have in today's society. So at the end of the day, it's is it going to the gym to make sure that you are healthy? Because as you said, they're targeting specific areas in the body, which is more for appearance, but I always say at the end of the day, once you're exercising, whether you're doing your cardio, whether you're doing an overall workout, that could definitely help improve your health. There's a significant improvement. I think it's like within 5% to 20% of any type, within I think 5% to 20% weight loss will improve your health significantly. So I mean, it does it have you thinking, as to what would be what's the purpose. Is it really your overall health? But
because somebody can be a particular weight and you're not obese, but you just find you want to look as a particular person. And there you go trying to lose that weight, and the weight you put on or the weight you become as a result of trying to lose the weight is still unhealthy, and you might not be obese, but you could be slim and still very unhealthy.
That is true.
You understand? So
I also would just like to share this too as well. There are persons who would you may have you're exercising, you're going to the gym, right? And you want to build muscle mass. I just want to share this, that actually an increase in muscle mass also increases your BMI as well. So there are other parameters that your physician usually would use besides the BMI in order to determine whether this person is obese or not. Right? So you would find that the more muscle you have, the more your BMI would actually be increased. Right? So another way that the physician is going to examine whether you are obese would be your waist circumference, right? And to see whether you have, from that, determining the specific centimeters around the waist, then that would determine whether you're also obese or not. And also the body composition analysis in terms of the ratio between fat and muscle.
You know what they say? The stubborn fat is right there. The tummy area. Yes, and again, based on certain race, as actually certain cultures, that it's really, especially African American, African Caribbean, our women are more robust looking, they are more thicker looking. So sometimes when it comes to weight gain, it's easier to gain weight and it's harder to lose the weight, especially after especially after having a child.
So these are some of the areas that we would look at this evening. We have more that we could also discuss, but I know time seems to be running. I know.
I'm looking
right?
at it, I'm like, wow, we're almost at 8 p.m. So we go till 8 p.m., right?
Exactly.
That's the next 10 minutes or so.
Exactly. So overall, as we talk about obesity, we definitely want to still talk about the treatment of obesity. And first things first would be dietary management. How do you manage? There's so many things out there. There's all different types of diets. We have the ketogenic diet. We have the low carbohydrate diets. We have people now that are completely they're going on vegan, they're becoming vegans. There's the pescatarians. There's so many things. Like just fish. There's so many things out there, so many literature and different things that people are getting into. But one thing for me that in my opinion, I believe that having a well-balanced diet, because I think it's good.
What does that look like to you?
Okay. Well, in this case, in terms of obesity, a well-balanced diet is that you still would have your carbohydrate.
Right.
You still would have protein, right? Healthy fats. Maybe if you have more plant fats because I'm talking and pertaining specifically to obesity. A general balanced diet would have your carbohydrates, your proteins, your fats, your sugars, right? Now, in the case of obesity where we want to treat, your diet would be somewhat changed. It would be, we definitely would have to change it towards the individual. Okay. Right? But for sure, we want to decrease the carbohydrate, the size, right? That quantity of carbohydrates. Your carbohydrates intake would definitely be decreased.
Yeah. And what's important to note is that your body is such a beautiful thing that it just knows how to adjust. If your body realizes that's the road you want to take, it works with you after a period of time.
Because it's the mind as well. It's all in the mind. It's all, you have to tell yourself it's about being disciplined. Yeah, so that's why I'm saying in terms of dietary management, this takes a while. Yes, it's not something that's going to be abrupt. It's not something that is just going to happen overnight, but it's first beginning to make a plan.
The thought is your old habits will fight you.
Yes, it will.
Until you tell them, listen, you're not having your way anymore. Yeah. They will fight you.
Yes, it will.
And you have to make sure you let them know you believe what you believe, or else, trust me, you're going to fall right back into it.
And that is where family support, physician support, having counseling, such as behavioral, cognitive therapy, all of these things would definitely play a role, right? Having a meal plan is very important in terms of the dietary management, and slowly you're weaning yourself off. So as you mentioned, the bread, you're slowly weaning yourself off certain carbohydrates, certain foods. And what you would see gradually as you start to eat and you start to exercise, you realize, wait a minute, I'm not so much interested in having the 6 slices of bread as I used to have before, right? And its support really helps. Support, whether family members help go to the gym with you, go jogging with you, whatever it is, it really does help, right? So physical activity, physical activity. Right, for me, I must say I love to tell patients do things that you like, because what we have found out, right, a lot of times you may go to the gym, but if you don't like the gym, you're under stress.
The gym is hard work, man. In the gym, and
there are some people, and sometimes it's stressful, right, and you don't want to be in an environment that would secrete that hormone cortisol.
And
you don't want that stress hormone.
From experience, being in the gym sometimes around people who are,
it can be intimidating.
They're doing it and they probably getting it right, and there you are. They probably or maybe they just found a way to conquer it, and they are there and they're going good, but you in your mind is like, I don't want to be here right now.
Yes. And so sometimes that adds pressure, right? I would like to add, like, for instance, picture, it could be lonely at times. It's good to maybe if you go to the gym, you go with, I'm just saying for some people, I'm just thinking of a young female and already with the, the prejudice already on you, the discrimination, and you're going there and you don't look like all those young ones with the tight waistline and, everything all, I'm just saying.
So you see why it's important to get your mind right.
I'm
because
just saying,
if your mind is not right, then you have a problem.
Yeah, well, I'm saying these are the challenges that a lot of people would be faced with.
I have 2 female friends on Facebook, and I this morning I was, even before I knew we were going to have this program, I was listening to one of them, and she was talking about how amazing. I wish I could have like pulled up the video and just play it now, but she was saying that how she's no longer going to live her life to please people or in the social world. Who you see if she present herself on a social media platform, what you see is what you get. You shouldn't be asking me if that is me when we meet in public. No, she had a lot of weight. But she had to discipline herself, and she showed you the journey, and and it was so interesting. And I also saw another person, nice muscular lady, and she looks really nice, but that's not where she started. You understand? She showed you the journey, and one thing you will see in common, this lady had post-its and so on up, and I'm gonna call her name, saying, I love myself.
Yes.
So even before she became the version of the self that she intended to see, when she was who she was, she still loved herself at that point. So, so it's so important to get these things,
and reminding yourself why you're doing it.
So you're doing it because you love yourself, not because you want to look like somebody. Oh, you UNC, and men will be like, yo, UNC, what's his name again, boy? Can't remember this guy name. This UK guy. He has all his muscles and things, and he always have these videos on YouTube, and and it's like, yo, Simeon Padna, that's his name, and I mean, like, I don't look like Simeon Padna. I got a big biceps, and and men working out, and the upper body getting so big, and then the lower body looking so small, and people talking about that, and they forever trying to fix the appearance and the posture, all sort of things people do. So at the end of the day, I think it's best if you eat right, you sleep right, you think right, very important, you understand, and just ensure you become the best version of yourself.
Yes, because definitely, in summary, weight loss on a whole, it does impact all aspects of your health. So as we, in terms of on a whole, right, that holistic approach, you're looking at your mental health. The mind should be right, being disciplined, ready to take on this task. True. And as you say, self-love. Self-love definitely goes a long way. Having that confidence that you can do it, definitely pushes you ahead, right? And I always say having family support even makes it better.
Very true.
Right?
Very,
just because we're about to end soon, but I still would just like to share some of in terms of diet, some of the strategies.
I really believe you should go through.
I know our viewers would like to know some of those, right? So definitely I would say eating small meals. Right? So we are in a society that, eating bigger meals and so on are usually encouraged. But as I was sharing with Saby a little earlier, that if you notice some of the Asian communities or the Indonesian communities, right, when they usually have a meal, like even though we buy food from them, right, but when they're actually having a meal, even if you take a peep and you see, sometimes they're rice portions, right? It's carbohydrates, just a little small wide bowl, right?
It's in a plate.
But we have it in a big box, right?
In a plate. Or in a big box.
Right? So even that also we can take a page out of their book, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes even if we can have the carbohydrates, we can have the rice, but sometimes in very small portions, right? Also, another thing that I found to be very useful in their cultures is that they also would drink tea.
Yeah.
So you find that they would actually have a cup of tea, herbal tea, and not caffeine, herbal teas, right? Because usually herbal teas would increase metabolism. It would actually help digest and improve digestion of those foods, of that actual meal. And it's right after the meal, right? So another thing that we even mentioned earlier is substituting our fresh fruits and vegetables and also salads in replacing them with from the refined carbohydrates and processed foods. Now we also want to, instead of actually having the soft drinks and the juices, we can substitute that with water or even the herbal teas as well.
That works miracle.
Right?
Trust me, the water, man, you can't go wrong.
Yeah,
you can't go wrong.
Yeah. All right. And also sometimes, less dairy. I know there's a debate about dairy products and all of that. But one thing I can say, right, our guts have this natural flora, right? We have a natural microflora. right? And this helps with digestion. It helps with the metabolism of food as we eat it, right?
Okay.
So what happens, certain foods, like I know a lot of women will talk about, like, certain like apple cider vinegar and so, and on trying to understand why does it work. Now the reason behind it is that it actually increases the fermentation in the actual gut. And this helps stimulate our actual microflora, and it helps break down the food very well, right? So there's absorption of nutrients that is absorbed in the body, and the waste products is flushed out.
Oh.
All right. So these also do help. So for instance, now you see with that whole dairy, and so it causes that our bacteria is like, what is this? And then it takes a longer to ferment, and then it causes a lot of gas, and it decreases in digestion. So sometimes having that low fat dairy product also can help as well.
Okay.
Right?
Yogurt and so on.
You want to not, or you would try low fat, All right.
Or even those that have no fat, raw one. It's so hard to consume, but so good for the intestine.
Yes. So I just want to share with us some of our like in terms of the glycemic index, some foods that have glycemic index, and actually just comparing them, right? So the higher the glycemic index, the more this food might not be the best when looking for foods, either the healthier foods or the foods that actually would give you they are glucose foods, but in terms of the breakdown of the glucose is slower, so they are healthier foods. So we have like beans. In terms of beans, red lentils, soy, these have a better glycemic index. Even the kidney beans as well has a glycemic index of 33. Now when we're looking at bread, like if we have to compare, and this is interesting, like when you look at I think white bread, some of the glycemic index is like 69. Right. If you look at rice, it's 90. Cornflakes, 83.
Wow.
Right. When you look at sweet potatoes, it's 50. Right. When you look at compared to like mashed potatoes, and so it's 72. Right. When you look at
bread with the whole wheat and the white.
Yeah. When we look at, and that's why it's so important. Why I mentioned a lot of fruits, right, in terms of your sugars, because fructose is what you would get from the fruits. And the glycemic index for fructose is 22, whereas in terms of a refined sugar is 64, right? And glucose itself is 100. Honey is 91. So I just wanted us to see honey's 91. I mean, honey is good, yes, but sometimes we would like, I'm having honey instead, but not knowing the glycemic index is pretty close to if you were just actually having the refined sugar of 64. What happens is that the difference is that some people might put 2 teaspoons of sugar, whereas you might just put half a teaspoon of the actual honey to sweeten the tea. But it actually has a higher glycemic index. So I think we spent a good evening with you guys. I mean, I just hope we were able to add a little bit. We didn't get into the physical activities. That would have been nice in terms of how it helps improve improve the actual insulin sensitivity and so on. I really wanted us to talk about that and how it actually improves our lipid profile and the benefits and so on. But maybe we can do another show, a part 2. All right. But, I just want to thank you guys for listening in. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you to all the persons that would have sent in your views, your comments. We appreciate you dearly. Thank you so much. Thank you, DJ Saby, for joining us this evening. It was just a good chat. It's obesity is something that many people all age groups are suffering,
True.
And it's something that we need to address. And again, as we said, it's all about beginning in the mind, starting from making healthy choices, deciding, we're going to change what we eat at home. We're going to change the foods that we eat, how we cook. It really begins from our diet and lifestyle. One of the most interesting facts this evening was concerning verbal abuse, physical abuse, and how it impacts childhood obesity. These were some of the highlights. Guys, we just want to say, have a good night. We wish you a good night. We hope that you would have learned and got some tips from Heavenly Medicine. Again, I am your host, Dr. Zayniah Louison, and I wish you a good night. Stay safe. Be blessed. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Only you know how it feels inside. This pain when you try to hide it. Afraid to cry for help, you smile and drown it out. Only you know how it feels inside. To try and try and try and try and try and fail. Only you know why you say the clock and he's not home. Out with his boys drinking, 'cause he knows when he goes home and opens that door, it's another night of fighting or silence. Oh, she's cutting up deep, and they just think that she's crazy, but you know better, doctor. You know she's being touched in the wrong way. Oh, doctor, can you heal him? I pray, 'cause if you don't, he will not make it. Doctor, can you heal her? I pray, 'cause if you don't, she won't make it till the morning. Doctor, can you heal them? I pray, 'cause if you don't, they will not make it. Doctor, can you heal them? I pray, 'cause if you don't, they won't see the morning.
Hope 103.1 FM. Why listen to anything else? High on praise and exaltation. We are Hope 103.1 FM.